if you're not being invited into the boardroom, then build your own boardroom. We don't want to be left behind, and things are changing so rapidly. So my suggestion is embracing the change.
Hello, and welcome to the Connect podcast. This show is all about helping you connect to your soul's calling so you can take action on it. Because the sweetest success is a blend of discovering your purpose with the inner drive to bring it to life. I'm Sheila Botello, health coach, lifestyle entrepreneur, and mom of two, best known for my online wellness programs, mentoring, and self-love passion. Listen in for inspiring interviews, solo chats, and Q&A sessions that will move you past overwhelm towards what lights you up. Stop accepting good enough and go for your version of great in your health, business, and relationships. Let's get started. Hello, and welcome to the Connect podcast. I'm so thrilled to be having a guest today with me. Dr. Suzan Snaggs-Wilson is a successful leader in the financial services industry with over 26 years of experience. Since migrating to Canada from Trinidad and Tobago since 1981, she remains committed to being a leader that is passionate about people development, creating inclusive and inspiring workspaces, and coaching individuals in unlocking financial wins. Suzan holds a Bachelor of Arts degree in sociology from Wilfrid Laurier University Waterloo, an MBA in financial services from Dalhousie University in Halifax, and a PhD in social justice education from the University of Toronto. She obtained a personal financial planning and registered retirement advisor designation from the Canadian Securities Institute and a certified executive coach with Certified Coaches Federation. Suzan and her husband of 23 years, Stephen, currently reside on the beautiful island of Turks and Caicos. They enjoy traveling, whether on a cruise ship to exotic places or visiting their two children, Brandon and Brianna, and their daughter-in-law, Nikki, in Canada. Suzan, I'm thrilled you're here. Thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, thank you so much, Sheila. I really appreciate the opportunity to share today and to spend some time with you.
It's great to be able to connect in this way because in the past, we've met at a friend's party from time to time, and that's been beautiful when you've been blowing through town for a visit over the holidays. And of course, with travel being a little limited the last few years, that hasn't happened, but it's been nice to connect in this way on Zoom.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. The power of technology.
It is a beautiful thing. I'm grateful for it.
Right.
So I would love for you to share for people who are getting to know you, what is the path that you have been on since arriving in Canada and moving through life in your various career ventures? I would love to hear the trajectory. And as I love to share with people, that winding path that took you from one place to another and what informed some of those decisions.
Absolutely. Good question. And, I must say that my journey coming from the Caribbean, being born in Trinidad and Tobago, and then having the opportunity to come to Canada at age 15, for me, it was a dream come true because, when you think of the Caribbean and coming into a North American country, it really speaks to, opportunities. It speaks to possibilities. And for me, it was making sure I take advantage of all the opportunities and possibilities that I, can capture in Canada. And for many people, growing up in the Caribbean and, looking to migrate, that's what they migrate for a better life. And it's funny, I've been able to go back to the Caribbean and work since then. And I'm realizing sun, sea, and sand, like, wow, it's like being in heaven. But, from a bigger perspective, there's so many opportunities, to help us as sort of first generation and then building wealth and, ensuring that we're carving out that pathway for, our families to come behind. And I think for me, that has been my journey and to ensure that I'm setting that platform so that my children, my children's children, and so forth will have a sound foundation as they, come into their lives and their successes.
Oh, it's so beautiful. And it feels like it's a conversation I'm hearing more and more about. And it is also something that can seem even more elusive to a lot of people now, based on the economy and how things are shifting so quickly. What is your philosophy on parenting as you've been raising your kids over the years and now they're independent, living their beautiful lives? And while you were doing that, you were also growing in your career. What were your philosophies in doing that?
One of the things that I learned early was that, when we're being brought up as young women or even men, right, and attending school, we tend to associate certain accreditations as success. So for example, you get an A in English and, that's perfect. You get a D in, science or something and, oh, that's bad. And so we tend to take those gradings into our personal lives. So for example, I'm a good in motherhood, so an A for that, or, I'm lousy at cooking, so that's a D. And we tend to be judging ourselves, back and forth based on these grading systems. I learned early that there are times when it's okay to be a D and okay to even be an A, right? But not to look at it from that perspective, but to look at it from how am I, being able to harmonize my life. People talk about work-life balance, and I don't believe in work-life balance because I don't think there's any such thing. At one point or another, we're either giving 150% of our time to something, or another time we just can't give even 100%, right? So recognizing that when you have the energy, when you have the power, when you have the strength, you can go full force and be proud of that. But at times when you need to pull back and, just self-reflect, times to put on the oxygen mask, like I say, and understand it's okay. It's okay sometimes just to be in those quiet moments, those quiet spaces, and let others lead. It's okay, right? So that's how I've lived. Our family is based on that. It's based on understanding we all have our strengths and we all have our weaknesses. And if we can tap into your family's strengths, let them lead that piece. So my husband's good at certain things. I let him do that. My son is great at doing certain, I let him run with it. I'm good at certain things. So we all understand what our strengths are. And it's okay to let them lead a piece of that pie. And in the end, we're successful as a family. So it's not all up to mommy to do everything. Sometimes the kitchen needs cleaning and it's okay. Somebody else can clean it. Sometimes, laundry needs doing or groceries, needs shopping. And my husband, he's great at grocery shopping. I let him do that, right? And that's how the harmony comes, is just, allowing others to take their place to lead and let them do it. And be grateful. I think that's the key piece, being grateful, for the little things.
Yes, I love that philosophy of parenting. And it's very similar to my own. Ask for help and allow it to come. And don't hold on to how it shows up, right? That end result, like you say, the grading. Wow, what a beautiful way of looking at it. I would love for you to share about, in your experience, how did you know through your career when it was time for you to start a new venture and to move into something different? Because often we can get so comfortable being good at something that having that adventurous spirit and that confidence to move into something that maybe we're not as familiar with can be really daunting. How did you handle that?
Good question. I think of we need to, as women, and I would have learned this early in my career, that we need to take more risks. Women tend to be a little bit shy when it comes to stepping out and living in that brave space. And I think it could be all part, again, of the culture and upbringing, as we're young, it's as children, sit nicely, you don't want your knees to be skinned, those sort of things, right? And so we grow up thinking that we need to be in that safe space. And so I'm not saying to be reckless by all means, but I am saying it's important sometimes to think, if I step out, what's the best that can happen, right? We always look at what's the worst, but what's the best thing that can happen if I actually step out? How will I impact that space that I'm in? Whose lives can I influence? And how can it turn out to be a much more positive experience than I had ever anticipated? Our brains technically cannot think that big. If you ask people, what's your biggest dream? Sometimes people cannot think that big. So it's difficult sometimes to think of the best scenario, right? And beyond. And so it's important sometimes just to take that little leap, that leap of faith, right? That, if I have the skill sets, if I put my best foot forward, right? If I surround myself with the right people, the right, mindsets, then, success will come. And then to prepare for it. So a lot of people don't prepare for success. They think, well, the worst scenario is, I lose my money, I lose my mind, I lose my time, I lose my energy. No, what happens if you're successful? What happens if you step into an adventure or even a business venture and you get extra customers, right? Or demands for your time or your product or your service? How do you prepare for that? And you will see that many businesses fail because people do not plan for success.
That's big.
Yeah, that's the key piece. And I see it. I mean, I'm in business. I look at sort of these things and you realize people don't start planning. Okay, so who am I going to hire and how quickly am I going to hire that next person? Do I need a marketing manager? Who's going to be my successor? How am I going to expand my business? What's the next market I want to go in? There are all these questions that is not thought of at early on enough that people, just think, well, I need to get from point A to point B, but they don't think about Z, right? So that's important. So for me, that's some of the things I do think about constantly. And it could come maybe because I migrated to Canada and I had to find new ways of thinking, new ways of being, understanding the culture, getting to know, who are the influencers and how can I build those strategic relationships so that I can move ahead. Those are some of the things that I tend to think about constantly. And plus in my environment, I am charged with performance, that's my job, right? So, being a high performer, but also performing for other teams and coaching my teams to be successful. And that's the result that I'm expected to make. And so decision making, getting into those brave spaces comes naturally to me.
Yes. And I think so much, it's powerful what you said. It connects in with finding mentors, finding people who've gone before you so that you're not walking blindly and they can help you think further down the road because maybe they've been there before. And it seems like you're probably very much in a mentorship role a lot of the time too. And I love how you talked about creating mutually beneficial relationships, like having those connections of everybody helping each other. It's a wonderful way of working because our work is our life. And if we can have those connections with people who are in a similar mindset, wanting to grow, wanting to transform, it can make work not feel so much like work. It can actually feel like play a little bit.
Absolutely. That's what I say. You work hard, then you can play hard. And my team knows that with me. I say we work hard and then we'll play hard. So it's a win-win.
Absolutely. So talk to me now about marketing yourself in business to create those strategic partnerships or connections. Really, we are all selling every day by just showing up and being ourselves to connect with people. What is your approach on that?
Yeah, I think it's understanding your value proposition. What do you bring to the table? It's interesting because that takes time to sort of understand and feel comfortable with. Because, as I go back to what I said originally, we're always assessing, and grading ourselves, I'm an A, I'm a B, I'm a CEO, how bad, how great, and so forth. So that tends to take you more through an emotional roller coaster ride, right? But when you come to a realization of, these are my 3 or 4 strengths, these are my gaps. You work on your strengths. And I think in the past, it was a little bit of a reverse. We tend to work on our weaknesses, right? And there's nothing wrong with trying to better ourselves and, and keep growing and learning. That comes with self-awareness. But the amount of time you invest in yourself really should be in strengthening your already strong skill sets. And that way you become an expert in your field. And then you surround yourself with the persons who have that ability to close those gaps that you have. And so it makes a great synergy in that you're moving forward in a intent, I would say being purposeful or with intent, right? And knowing what your key strengths are. So when it comes to building that brand, and your value proposition, people then get to know you and they know what your strengths are and they know what they can count on you for, right? If it's a matter of being a person of integrity, a person that gets the job done, a person of accountability, respect, whatever that looks like, your circle will know, if I want to get a job done, I'm going to go to her, right? Or if I want to know the truth, I'm going to go to her, right? And that's where your brand comes in. And to be honest, you don't need to walk around with it on your shoulders. You don't need to walk around, people know and point out, and they can quickly determine if you're being authentic or not, right? So I say my brand is I love developing people. I naturally want to see others' success, and to know that I was able to influence and help them get to that next level. Now, when I say that, I really mean it. And there are times when I have done that and the person have moved on further than where I have been or I was able to accomplish. And at that point is where you have to say, great job, right? And that's what it's all about. It's being excited about whatever you put your name to, whatever you believe in and you're passionate about, believe it and live it. And that's the brand. That's building your brand.
Oh, that is beautiful. And what a wonderful feeling when people move beyond us and exceed. It's beautiful to witness and to even have a small piece in helping them do that and building that trajectory, like so wonderful. And it's something that I feel like I'm seeing as we see the rise of the feminine in business, particularly the collaboration over competition. We all have that unique flavor. And I love how you shared the distinction between focusing on your strengths and building those and then surrounding yourself with people to fill in those gaps. That is something that is kind of a new idea in this age, and it works so much better. It makes working so much more fun because you're working in your strengths.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And you talk a lot also of, opening up conversations on building generational wealth. This is very close to your heart.
Mm-hmm.
And tied into that, the importance of women working in tech and being on the playing field when it comes to building businesses and raising money and venture capital and all of that. So please share your thoughts and your hopes for what is to come for women in this space.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting because, when I look at especially being in my field in the financial services sector, years ago, I felt that there was an opportunity for women to take more control of their finances. And, many times I would have people will come in and they would say, well, woman, my husband looks after that when it comes to the finances. I don't know how much money we make and I don't know what monies we owe and so forth because my husband manages that. But what ends up happening is women are left behind, and they're left behind in 2 ways. First of all, is that, when you think of where money is, how it's being spent, budgeting and so forth, we don't have a voice. And so we have to have a voice in those spaces, right? It's a shared responsibility. It's shared accountability of finances, right? But the second piece I think is important is understanding that in this day and age, women now represent 57% of the workforce. And so what happens is we have that share of wallet, like we're managing half of the wallet, right? So we need to be able to be accountable for how is that wallet and that money spent, and how are we even saving and building for our future? Who are we going to leave our assets for? How is it going to help others in the future? I've seen people sometimes invest in investments and they don't know why they invest in it. Are we investing in something that's true to our hearts, our belief system, or are we investing in something that, normally you wouldn't even look at, in real life, but you don't know on the back end what's happening with that, with the money you're spending. So it's important for us to have up close and intimate relationship with building finance, with building our wealth. And not only that, an understanding of where is it going, but even after. So estate planning, what legacies we want to leave behind, who's going to be enjoying our money when it's, when we're gone, because there will be something, if there's a dollar left over, you have an estate. And so who's going to be enjoying your dollar and what are they going to be doing with it? So it's having that voice and coming to the table to discuss and negotiate, where this money is going to be and how is it going to be built. So with that said, what I've done is I'm starting to look, and you talk about generational wealth, it's the next level, the children. We tend to think that children are too young to understand finances or understand money. I remember my daughter when she was growing up and she wanted something and she'd say, Mom, I want to buy this new dress or something. And I'll say, well, I don't have any money on me. And she'll say, that card, just go to that machine and card in and money comes out. She didn't realize that, you have to deposit first to get that money out, right? So it's just teaching children that, money is a responsibility. And it requires, you to understand, this responsibility, how is it being spent? How is it being earned? Is it being earned in a healthy way? Is it a sense that, I deserve it, so I should have it? Or is it a sense of I've worked for it, so I should enjoy it? Right?
That's a powerful distinction.
Yeah, it's two different mindsets. So I think if we can get children thinking along those lines. So what I did is I can share my book. It's called Brandon's Trip.
Love it.
Brandon's Trip to the Bank. And it's about a young boy, 7, who, saved his money. And he saved his money through different avenues. He's, participated in a garage sale, and he sold some of his hockey cards and so forth. When he got money for Christmas and birthdays, he set aside some of that. So it's showing children that they can make money. A lot of money passes through children's hands, when you think about it, right? Birthday gifts, Christmas, and so forth. And so understanding a portion of that can be saved. So he was very ambitious. He saved his money. And now today, Mom is taking him to the bank to open his very first bank account. And he's thoroughly excited and he's proud, right? And the second reason it's important is that, children needs to feel comfortable in institutions such as banks. I know adults who are afraid to walk into a bank because they said it's so sterile and they're scared and they don't feel comfortable and they don't know if people are looking at them. And, and it's not, it's a space of safety. I mean, that's where your money is. So it's got to be safe, right? You've got to feel comfortable to walk in and have those frank discussions about my money. And so for children, it's okay to walk into a bank and sit down, with your parents and have that discussion of, I want to open a bank account. Here's my name and here's my ID and here's, my address. And he knew his information, as much as possible. And he felt proud, walking out with his bank account and his bank card. So I'm really excited about the book. It does speak to diversity, of course. I mean, the gentleman, the family is a mixed family, interracial. But it allows us to see and reimagine what mixed families look like. They're normal people. My husband and I were an interracial couple. And so there's no drama. There's no mystery, right? We're normal. We go to the bank, the dentist, we buy groceries just like everybody else. Our children, have functioned nicely, just like anybody else. And so it allows people to see the inside of an interracial family as well. So it's serving a couple purposes.
Oh, that's so beautiful. And I know a bunch of young moms and dads who would love to share a book like this with their children because of that piece, of the interracial piece, of all of the things you said, that banking can be a fun experience. Because even people who may feel quote unquote safe going into a bank, it may not be their highlight of their day. Because when they equate banking, they're thinking, overcharges and, all the bills and everything's so expensive. But having a shift in our perspective of banking and saving and planning for the future, shifting that perspective can help us be more excited about our financial lives. And what a beautiful gift to give to our kids so that they look at money as being a positive thing instead of just something that stress is surrounding.
Exactly.
So what a gift that you've given in writing this book. I will be sharing links of how people can get that in the show notes for sure. And so I would love to know one last thing about the business and women in business and money. What's one thing that you would love for women to know about investing and raising money, like a mindset or something you'd like to leave them with?
Yeah, good question. The one thing I would say that's important is it's not so much about the money, but it's understanding the future and business in the future. What does that look like, right? And we've seen where with the COVID environment, people have developed so many fabulous businesses, so many new ideas, creative ideas. And so I would encourage women to, start thinking of, again, what are their strengths, but, and passions, what are they passionate about? But stepping into those spaces where they're in the boardrooms, where I said this before, if you're not being invited into the boardroom, then build your own boardroom, right? Yes. And so, roles like CEOs and, like yourself, CFOs and so forth. Great opportunity now to have, even to dabble in some of these spaces, and you can run, your own business. The piece about building wealth and so forth, it'll come, but we need to stay ahead of the curve. Things like, I don't see a lot more, I'm starting to see it, and this is great, a lot more women getting into technology, for example. So, IT, the world is changing, and you can see that IT is around, it's going to be around for a while. We don't want to be left behind. More women can get into coding and so forth. There's blockchain, there's Bitcoin, there's so many different concepts that's before us now, and things are changing so rapidly. So my suggestion is embracing the change. Embracing that, we can't be left behind. We need to move forward and move forward quickly because the environment is changing quickly. And what does that mean? It means, again, you don't have to be perfect in everything, but understand that making decisions quicker is important. Women tend to sometimes have to have the circle. We were taught sitting in a circle and, in our time and circle time and come up with an answer and solution. Nowadays, it's making fast and decisive decisions with less information. You can always tweak your decision and you can always tweak the action plan you take, but to sit back and wait can be detrimental. So we just need to do that. Secondly, women need to understand the concept of resiliency. And, we think of resilient as being strong, and it is, but knowing, as I mentioned in the beginning, understanding when to put on that oxygen mask, when to raise your hand and say, this is what I need, and I need it now, right? And not take the world on our shoulders. Learning to delegate in an appropriate way and not feel guilty about it, right? And getting those key, as you talked about, mentors, allies. Allies will come along and hold us up, right, and not tear us down. Knowing when, and I have another book. It's called, actually, I co-authored another book called A Walk in Her Shoes. And a few points in there, we talk about looking at happiness and success. And it's a journal. It's a woman's journal that allows you to be interactive with the book, it'll ask questions and so forth and so forth. But things like knowing when to shed toxic relationships. It's so important. Like, women tend to try to always cure relationships and hold on to these relationships. And, if it's not working, then what did I do wrong? And no, if an relationship is toxic, it's just not working. Time to move on, right? And to know when it's healthy to say, I'm not there right now. I'm not in that space. I want to be in this space, and it's okay, right? Knowing how to control the controllable. There's some things we can control and other things we can't. The things you can control, invest your time, energy into, because that's where the success will come and the rewards will come. So, some key aspects of, what women can do to continue moving forward in a healthy way, because the world is their oyster right now. There's so many great opportunities for women. There's some strong women out there we can look at to mentor, some great role models, right, that have gone before us. And so it's a great opportunity for women to step into their space, their brave space, and, live their passions.
It's so evident that this is something that you have become an expert at, because you're living a beautiful life that has a lot of choice, because probably you went through all of those different things and cleared the space, asking for help and really having those tough conversations and clearing the decks of those toxic relationships free you up so much.
Mm-hmm.
In the moment, it may not feel great, but man, does it ever feel good on the other side. And always it's like a bless and release. We're all at different places in our journey. It's not about shaming. It's not about, just literally cutting people out of our life necessarily. It is just about shifting priorities. Mm-hmm. And my son the other day said to me, my youngest, he's hilarious. He's 14. And he's like, yeah, Mom, you talk about delegating and asking for help. You've really gotten good at that, because I'm always asking like, oh, can you do this? Can you do, and they just are so helpful, but they've gotten so used to it and they recognize it. Mm-hmm. And then he actually says to me, I think it's great though, Mom, because you deserve to have time for yourself. You deserve to be able to go and just enjoy yourself. I can go hop on my BMX whenever I want. So you should be able to go hang out with the girls or do something with Dad and have fun. I'm like, oh, I love that as a teenager, you see that and respect it and appreciate it. I'm super grateful. Don't take that for granted at all. But I love that you're sharing this and just reminding us, we can't hear it enough times. We need successful women like you preaching that message and living it. And so all of this and all of your success, it has been supported by various practices and various belief systems in your own life. And I would love for you to share, what are your spiritual and self-care practices that support your highest well-being for you to show up in such a powerful way in the world?
Good question. I have pretty much routines in my everyday life. I do journal a lot. I believe in journaling. I don't go to sleep unless I journal at night. And my journal really is more from a gratitude perspective. So I go through, and I'm really big. I don't know if you've heard about, I'm sure you have, about The Secret and, being able to attract what you think and so forth. So I live that a lot. But for journaling for me is living in gratitude. So, if somebody even buys me a cup of coffee, I put it down. Thank you, universe, for giving me a cup of coffee, because it's something I would not have normally, had that somebody brought into my life. And the fact that the person thought of me meant that that energy was positive, right? So I journal that. I thank God for my family. I thank, for my husband, all these things I tend to put on paper. And not only do I journal the past, but I journal the future. So I look forward to when I'm journaling. So what am I professing ahead? I'm professing ahead to have a wonderful day. I'm professing success, and I profess the things that I want to draw into my life as I'm writing. So that's important to me because it gives me that sense of space, that sense of calm that I can, just sit and get those thoughts on paper. I'm really big though on, and I'm not advertising for anything, but Franklin Covey I live by the Franklin Covey agenda. And, even I have it right beside me. So I basically have my priorities as to what are some of the things I need to do every day. And so Franklin Covey has this thing, they talk about the big rocks and the sand. And so understanding, what are your big rocks and what are some of the things you need to focus on every day in order to, be successful in a lifetime, right? So that comes from understanding your core purpose. And I talked about, being passionate about helping women. So that's something I put, always writing, make sure I write because I love writing. I love, speaking. Staying in touch with family. I actually put on there, if I called my daughter today and I says, we haven't spoken for 2 weeks and I think I'm going to put it in my agenda, to make sure I call you, right? Just little things like that. My husband and we have date night every Thursday night. So it's in my agenda. So those things are important to me, right? And the reason they should be important is Covey talks about, when you think of your the end in mind. If you start with the end in mind, then what would be on your tombstone or what would people say about you, right? And most likely they wouldn't say that, I was the best banker. They would probably say I was a good mother, that I cared about people. I was passionate about helping others. And so if that's the case, then you need to live it. So that's part of, my routine in terms of the spirituality, how I balance work-life balance, harmony, I would say. But I'm always really big on my time. Time for me is valuable. And, having to do an MBA and then moving into my PhD and working full time and all the things that we do renovations, and so forth. Time to me is worth more than money. I take, how many hours in a week, 178 hours. How much do I need to sleep? If it's 8 hours a day, a night, set that aside. And then the rest is what I work with, the time for, if it's cleaning, studying, spending time with family, spending time with friends, it's all divided. And that gives me a sense of an exercise, like physical, like this mind, body, spirit. And the physical side is so important, especially for women as you get older. Statistics show that, we have the most earning power, later between, that 45 to 55, 60 age group. And so you don't want to get into your 55, 60 years old and now your body cannot sustain the power that you have, right? This is the most times, you've got your intellect, you've got, experience, you've got the money, you've got, right? So perfect timing. So you have to have that energy, that physical strength to be able to keep going. And so that's why exercise is important. Of course, eating healthy, you can't put garbage in and expect to get different returns. So my skin is important to me. So one of my regimens at night is I spend an hour on my face. I do the massaging, I do the creams, the masks, and, it's a routine.
Feels so good to take care of yourself. And it might look different for all of us, but I love what you said about how at midlife, it's like we're coming into our most powerful time. Whereas historically, patriarchy would have us think it's like all downhill. Actually, that's not been my experience with the ladies I know 50 plus. Oh no, they are power brokers doing incredible things. And so I'm excited. I'm entering my 50th year this summer. So here we go. Let's do this. It's exciting. I'm actually really excited about just the years to come because every single day is a gift. And as we are, like you say, as we're manifesting, and I love the word that you used when you're journaling, what was the word that you used?
Professing.
Professing. It's so beautiful. You're professing what you desire, that it actually is possible. And when we are doing that, it opens up new channels in our mind and also our vision of what we see as being possible. So it's exciting when you expect that things can be better, good opportunities come our way. Like we don't have ultimate control over everything that happens in the world. We have control of our response though, and we have control over the energy we're putting out there. And typically we often get what we put out there. We get it back in different ways.
Yes.
So beautiful.
It's true. It actually is true. Depending on what you put out there is what you're going to get back. So, that's where those healthy thinking, healthy thoughts is important so that you're not putting out, negativity into the world.
Yeah, there's enough of that. We don't need any more. I love everything you've shared. And I would also love for you to share what projects are you most excited about right now? And then where can people find and follow you? We'll make sure that we link it all in the show notes.
Oh, this sounds good. My book's available at brandonsadventures.com. I'll Walk in the Shoe, which is as I mentioned, co-authored, is available on Amazon. And you'd have to put a walk in her shoes and then say a journal. So it's a woman's journal. Currently, I'm actually collaborating with a friend of mine who is the dean of a university in BC. And we're putting together a textbook, and it's a collaboration of other authors as well that allows us to look at some of the challenges that we've gone through over the past couple of years with COVID. But right now, I think there's a great divide. There's so many different things happening, and there doesn't seem to be a trust, between people and so forth. And I think it's time we start looking at how do we, close this and mend the bridges, close that great divide. And so what we're going to do is bring all these authors together and do storytelling. They're going to share their stories and some challenges and so forth, but how they overcame them, and what are some of the recommendations and ideas and so forth for them, to move beyond this point. So it's a labor of love. We've been working on it now for about a year. It takes time to get these things together, right? Working with publishers and so forth. But I'm really loving it. I love our time together as women. We meet every Saturday morning at 11 and via Zoom. And then, we chat and so forth and get the ideas flowing, and everybody goes away and they're writing their chapters. So once it all comes together, it would be a good project, but it's also a learning project, and hoping it's geared towards graduate students, and would be a great opportunity to have it published and get out there.
Wonderful. We'll make sure we share that. And I'm looking forward to seeing that all come to pass.
Yes.
Oh, well, thank you so much for sharing with us today. Thanks for being with me. And I am so appreciative of all that you bring in the world. I just really want to acknowledge you for the way you live, the light that you bring wherever you go, any room you walk into, and any Zoom room that you're in. And I wish you all the best with everything to come.
Thank you so much, Sheila. It's such a pleasure. You're doing such amazing work, and you're one of those women that, is leading and going before so that other people can follow. And, you're stepping out, right? This is what we talk about, stepping out in that brave space, and to be able to, bring people together to share information and then share it with the world. I mean, this is your voice, and I appreciate all that you're doing too.
Thank you so much. I received that. And for those of you who have been listening, thanks for joining us. Please check out all the links in the show notes to follow Suzan's work, and let us know what resonated the most with you from this conversation today. You can send us a message, direct message us, or screenshot this episode and share it in your stories. We would love to hear. Have a beautiful rest of your day. Big blessings. Thank you so much for being here with me on the Connect podcast. If you like this episode, please share it with someone you think would enjoy it. Also, if you head over to iTunes to leave a review, I'd be so grateful. Let us know what your favorite parts were and what you'd like to hear more of. It will help us have a greater impact, elevating many more people to grow and succeed together. See you next time.